Hi, and welcome to another episode of PDA Dad UK. In this episode, I want to look at how friends and family can be a support to parents of children who have autism. And I mean, this can go over into any form of extra need, whether it be a physical disability, whether it be mental health issues, autism, whatever the case may be. There are things that we can do as friends and family that can really make a difference in not just the parents' lives, but the kids also. Because when you are raising kids with extra needs, it's very, very draining. And I'll talk a little bit in a minute about what it's been for my experience and the experience of my family. And it can be very isolating. And if you can be a support, if you can be someone who's there, you can make a difference, because you're allowing those people, those parents who are going through a lot, believe it or not, you can help them be better in themselves, and therefore they're going to be better for their kids. I've used in a previous video the example of the flight checks when you go onto a plane, and the steward or stewardess, they stand at the front of the plane and they do the whole, here are the exits, and they get to the mask dropping down and they say, make sure your mask is secure first before you secure your kids. The reason for that is because you need to be conscious, you need to be alert, and you need to be with it to be the best support for your kids in that situation. Therefore, making sure your mask is on first is ensuring that you're going to be at your best. Likewise, when you're not your best, when your mental health is suffering because you're tired, because you haven't slept, because you're feeling isolated and alone, you're feeling helpless, there's so many emotions that come into this. When you're feeling all those things, it's overwhelming. And if we can help alleviate that stress and that pressure on those parents, then they're going to be more able to support their kids in the long run. It makes a big difference. So, as I say, my daughter's autistic with a PDA profile. We've established that in many of these videos. It's a very difficult thing. The reason it's difficult is because it's very hard it's difficult in so many ways, but one of the particular things is it's very hard for people to be able to look after my daughter that aren't me, and to the point that I probably wouldn't allow it unless it was someone I knew very well, that she'd be able to be alone with them. The reason is that her behaviours and her characteristics are such that I wouldn't want to put anybody at risk if she turned violent or aggressive. And there's also that sort of sense of guilt. We know how hard and challenging it can be. I love my daughter with all my heart, but I'm not blind to the fact that she's a very challenging child to be around. The difficulty is that means we don't get any respite. We're still in the process of trying to get some things in place that would allow professionals to help us with that, but the system is very slow. The system is very inadequate, really. And so those things aren't forthcoming immediately. And my daughter doesn't sleep great. I've done videos on sleep and autism. Many autistic kids don't produce melatonin, which is the body's natural sleep hormone. They don't sleep great, but the behaviours themselves, my daughter's on either 100 or 0. And more of the time it's 100. And if she seems calm, she can go from 0 to 100 in less than a second. It can be instantaneous, and she can fly into a rage. She can just find something too challenging and she can have a meltdown, or those unpredictable elements of her character make it very difficult for people to be able to look after her. We know what it's like, and then putting that on somebody else can be really hard. So we don't get any respite, and it's extremely tiring. I'm a very sociable person, and that comes into it too. I like to have a good group of friends, and I like to see those friends. I like to spend time with them, and that becomes challenging because we're experiencing this at the moment with my son at his school. My son is neurotypical. He's made a good little group of friends, but it's challenging to be able to say to people, come over. And, we actually had some friends over for a barbecue the other day, and they were fantastic, and it was really nice to sort of just meet some people who were able to sit down with us and just have a chat. And my daughter was actually on a really, really good frame of mind, and it made a massive difference. But it can be very challenging when you're out with friends, and then my daughter experiences some high anxiety for whatever reason, and the reactions and the behaviours kick in, and a lot of people, and I understand it, a lot of people just go, it's just a too hard basket. And so why would they want to put themselves through that stress when they could just as easily meet with other friends and not have to worry about it? And it can be really upsetting and really difficult for me personally, because I love people, I love spending time with people, and if I don't get that, it affects me. So I'm going to go through here a bunch of different ways that you can be a support to people who are raising autistic kids, for parents who are raising autistic kids, or carers who are raising autistic kids, and ways that you can make a massive difference in their lives. And there can be really little things that can make all the difference in the world. So let's begin. So the first way that you can be a massive support to parents who have autistic kids, or any kids with any extra needs, is by helping them with the process of applying for support, be that through benefits, and people are entitled to those benefits. For my daughter, we need a lot of extra sensory things, and they're expensive. You attach the word autism or sensory to something, suddenly the price increases fourfold. It's baffling, but that's the reality. It can be very expensive, and there are systems in place that enable us to be able to apply for certain grants and stuff like that, which will help us to purchase those things. There's a lot of them available. The local Citizens Advice Bureau are able to really help direct to where the best places are to go. But being a support to someone going through that, and a support in seeking that extra help, can make a massive difference. There's a lot of forms, there's a lot of time and energy spent into it. So just being a moral support in that, maybe even doing a bit of research yourself and saying, hey, I found this might help. Making the appointment with the Citizens Advice Bureau, being there with them while they go through it, just having a moral support with them as they go through this can make a massive difference, because they don't feel so alone and overwhelmed. The old adage of problem shared is a problem halved really does come into play. Just knowing you're not alone in this makes all the difference in the world to a parent who is going through all these challenging emotions and difficulties and stresses. So please, if you can do that, it's amazing. A lot of times, kids aren't yet diagnosed. The diagnosis process in the UK especially is extremely long and difficult. Private diagnosis is incredibly expensive. You're seriously looking at around £3,000-4,000 to get a private diagnosis, and even then it won't necessarily be recognised by the NHS. In fact, more oftentimes it won't be, and that provides a real challenge in itself. If you've got a parent who is concerned their child may be autistic, be a support with them to be able to take them to the doctors, to make the appointments they need to do to get that process in place, and be a moral encouragement. How's it going? Asking them, how's it all going with it? Is there anything I can do to help? What needs to be done next? It's really overwhelming. There's so much stuff that goes on, and you're not only battling the actual physical side of it with all the paperwork and all of the appointments and the unknowns, but it takes a massive emotional toll. The idea that something may be not right with your child in some way. I say that loosely. Our kids are our kids, and they are who they are, and we wouldn't change them. But knowing that there's something that needs to be addressed can be a massive issue, and it takes an emotional toll. Even if they know it, even in my heart, I know the issues my daughter has. Seeing it in black and white suddenly, and then having to process it all, it takes a massive emotional toll, because we want the best for our kids. We want them to be happy. We want them to be successful. We want them to be better people in this world and make the world a better place. And if there's something that can potentially get in the way of that, it hurts. And it can be a massive emotional roller coaster that we go on. So something you can do is just be there to support our parents through that. And again, it comes to that being a shoulder to cry on, be an active listener. Somebody, if somebody needs to vent about what it's all about, sometimes it's just nice to be able to let it all pour out and not be judged for it. So somebody who can just sit there and nod, give a hug, if they're a huggy type person, whatever their love language is, if it just means that, they need some words of support, if they need help, if you want to go and buy them a coffee, just the different things that you can do that say, I'm here and I'm with you and I'm going to support you, make a massive difference in someone's life. And with that too, be the person who goes along with them to a meeting. Be the person that's going to stand by their side. You don't have to be involved, but just knowing there's somebody even just waiting outside the door when they walk out of that appointment that's going to go, hey, how'd it go? You okay? Makes a massive difference. It's moral support, and it's just the idea that there's somebody that they can rely on who's not going to think the worst of them, and in fact is just going to be positive and supportive. Makes a huge difference. And that goes too for support groups and things like that. There are groups like scope.org.uk, National Autistic Society. They have local groups that you can join in with for parents who are supporting extra needs kids. They're fantastic things, but they can be really daunting when you first go in. Me, I don't have a problem with that. I'm gregarious and I'm sort of, hey, how's everyone going? But for my wife, that would be horrific. The idea of going in with a bunch of strangers and then, potentially having to share deeply personal things can be a really challenging thing to overcome, a real anxiety that kicks off. So having somebody they know there for just the first 1 or 2 meetings could be really useful. And you'll find also there's probably ways that you'll be able to help that you might glean from that as well. And so that's something you can really do that's positive, constructive, and actually really shows your commitment to being there for those people. One of the real difficulties I face with my daughter sometimes is when we're out and about. It's not so much an issue at the moment with lockdown and all of the restrictions we've got, but they're being eased now. But things like soft plays, my daughter goes through a sort of range of things at soft play. She loves it. She loves to run around and play. And my daughter appears to be quite social when she first goes out there. She's quite gregarious and deeply, deeply wants friendships. Her problem is, as part of the PDA profile, is she can't maintain friendships. She'll self-sabotage them. She doesn't realise she's doing it, but she's overbearing, overwhelming, very controlling. And it's one of those things that kids just go, hey, after a while, it's, you're a little too intense for me, I'm backing away. And then she gets hurt, and that can lead to meltdowns and whatever else. When those behaviours kick in, or, a great example was we were at Asda a long while back now, but she had an absolute meltdown over what shoes she wanted. She wanted a pair of shoes that were 2 sizes too big, and we were, I'm sorry, we just can't do that. They're not going to fit you and they're going to hurt your feet, and the school aren't going to allow them. And we had a proper kick-off in the middle of Asda, and you're just aware everybody's turning to watch. You get the glaring eyes and you feel this big. What's worse is that she gets, as I said before, she's violent and aggressive when she's in meltdown, and she was throwing the shoe, she was making a proper thing, and I had to actually move in and just hold her, physically restrain her, and then move her outside. And in fact, I had one chap come up with the best of intentions and make sure she was okay. Like, what's going on? He was, assuming the worst possibly, but I've become quite adept at being able to explain, I'm sorry, look, she's got autism, she's just experiencing high anxiety at the moment, and I can explain it through. But that, again, is a real challenge for many people. Having somebody by your side who can maybe just, you go and deal, I'll sort these people out, you go and deal with your child, let me just step in for you here and I'll explain. Just having somebody that can explain calmly and from a perspective of knowledge, and saying, sorry, she's dealing with her child has autism, his child has autism. They're struggling at the moment, the high anxiety is high and they're acting out, so they've just gone to deal with it. But please, please disperse, move along, nothing to see here. People who can do that for you, it's a massive support, and it can be the difference between a really, really bad afternoon because you've had a meltdown to, or we had a moment and my friend helped out, and I was able to go and calm them down, and we were fine. Makes the world of difference. Another really practical way that you can be a support, and this is maybe the biggest one for many parents of special needs kids, especially with autism, is sleep patterns. For the first probably 6 years of my life, maybe even 7 years of my daughter's life, I apologise, we just about didn't sleep. The night my daughter got home from the hospital after being born, it's just the worst night. She wouldn't sleep without one of us holding her. We were very aware that you can't really co-sleep at that age or anything like that. You got to, one of us has to be awake and make sure that we're not going to roll over onto her and anything like that. We put her in the cot, in the Moses basket, and she would wail and it wouldn't stop. You know, you'd sit there rocking it and it made no difference. Unless she had that physical contact, she just was in a world of pain, even at that, few days old age. Many kids, so I've explained in previous videos about melatonin and the fact that the body produces melatonin. It's your brain's hormone that sends out to say, we are getting ready for sleep now. This is the pattern we're going into. It kicks in the circadian rhythms and tells your body it's time to rest. A lot of autistic kids don't produce melatonin properly. They don't produce enough of it, if at all. And so they can go and go and go all night and they won't rest until they crash, literally. And then it can be a couple of hours and they're back up again. The effect that has on you as a human being, I need my sleep. I need a good solid sleep or I'm a wreck. And I subside on a lot of coffee to sort of cover me these days. But lack of sleep, it's used as a torture. It's a sleep deprivation. Your emotions suffer, your rational thought processes suffer, your ability to retain information suffers. It's an interesting fact I saw on a show a while back that was, while you're asleep, your brain almost goes through like a filing system and puts things away so that they're there to access, and it knows where to look for them immediately. And if we don't have sleep, we don't go through that process, so that information can just get lost. And the guy was using, he actually put himself through it. Part of what he did was learn a dance routine with 5 other people. And they all learnt the dance routine on the day, and they were all a bit sort of, oh yeah. Everybody else went home, had a good night's sleep. He was depriving himself of sleep for a period of time, so he didn't sleep that night. The next day, they were all improved. Every single one of them were actually better at recalling the moves in the dance routine than he was. And he'd completely forgotten it. He couldn't remember any of it because his brain hadn't gone through that filing process. It was really fascinating. But lack of sleep can lead to depression. It can lead to physical and mental illnesses. And so as parents, we need that. Just think of your own situation where you've had a couple of nights of bad sleep for any reason. And it really takes its toll, if you can imagine that, night after night after night after night. So there's a couple of things you can do to really help. One is to encourage it. Go to your GP, I'll be there with you, whatever the case may be. Talk to somebody about the sleep and see if there's something that can be done, whether it be medically or through, some advice or anything like that. But the other thing is, maybe offer to stay over for a night, even if it's, take a couple of hours in the day. Like I'm going to take, it's difficult. The kids can be very difficult, but if you're in that sort of closeness of friendship that you can do that, and you know that you'd be safe to do so, that makes such a difference, because that's time that, you can go and have a rest, go and have a sleep, go and have a chill. If you can be there for one night, crash on the couch, and if there's an issue, go and deal with it and allow that person to just get one good night's sleep. Just the difference it makes in someone's life. I'm very fortunate that we have a fantastic family support network. They don't live closely to us, and that's probably the biggest issue we have. But my mother-in-law in particular is fantastic. Whenever she comes down, she'll stay here for a couple of nights. She makes sure that my wife and I, get to go out, have a date night, go and get a meal somewhere. And it just makes the world of difference. It's only a few hours in the long run of things that she's there. The kids are in bed. It's not really an imposition, but knowing that they're safe with her and we can go out and just decompress, spend some proper quality time with each other without having to worry and constantly still be monitoring my daughter in particular, but both our kids, makes the world a difference. And you can be that in somebody's life. It's an incredible thing to do if you can do it. Another really tricky thing to get through as a parent of an autistic or special needs child is family gatherings or parties or events, kids' parties, whatever the case may be, knowing that your child is going to likely face differences. Parties are a really difficult thing for autistic people quite often. There's a lot of increased and extra sensory inputs that dramatically affect their anxiety and how they're going to cope. Lights and noises, balloons everywhere, people running around and screaming, loud music, just the elevation in fun, it all builds up, and that can lead to meltdowns and difficult behaviours and some embarrassing behaviours sometimes. A lot of parents don't understand stimming, where someone might shake or rock or all these different things, and it can be quite challenging for other people to see, and they think, what's wrong there? And it becomes embarrassing as a parent, like feeling you have to explain. If you're going to a party or an event and you know that someone's going to be there that's got an autistic or a special needs child, you can come prepared as well. Bring a few little, just cheapy gifts. Go to the pound shop and just get a few little bits, put them in a bag. Having somebody else that sees it's kicking in, keeping an eye and saying, oh, hang on, I can help out here. Here you go, look, I bought you this. A little spinner or something like that, just something that's going to keep them focused and be a distraction from everything that's going on, can be a huge difference. Also, just being the person that's there, just going, you're okay, you're doing good. You're talking to the parent and saying, you got this, I'm behind you. Having that moral support behind you is a huge thing. And, it just makes the world a difference knowing that you can be going somewhere as a parent, having to face these things, but knowing that somebody's there beside you who has your back and understands what a difference it makes. Finally, I want to say, I think the best thing anybody can do as a friend or a relative, a family member of a parent who is raising a special needs child or a child with autism is educate yourself so that you know what's going on as well. It's the number one thing for me. And I've learnt so much since my daughter has shown herself to be autistic and having to process that. I've researched a lot. I spend a lot of time reading and watching videos and trying to educate myself on what's going on for her. The best way I can be a support to my daughter is to understand to some degree what she's going through. I'm neurotypical. I don't suffer the same anxiety she does, but at least I can get some idea. I've never been to Thailand, but I've seen pictures, I've read about it, I've seen maps, I have at least some knowledge of it. I can't ever say I've experienced it like she does, but at least I can put myself in that position. The more you know, the better support you can be. There are so many fantastic ways you can do that just by reading. I run a group on Facebook with, it's designed for parents of autistic kids to be a support network. But one thing I've noticed is that we get quite a few people who are friends or family members, a lot of grandparents who join the group. My mother-in-law has joined that group because she wants to be the best support she can be for us and for my daughter. She loves her granddaughter with all her heart. She really does. She's probably her biggest advocate. But she understands that it's challenging, and she does a lot to be there for us. Joining those groups and being able to educate yourself means that when it comes to times of need, you're going to be the person who's going to be able to be there and say, hey, I get this, I have some understanding, I know what you're going through, I understand what you're going through, I can at least sympathise if I can't empathise. It's a huge thing. So the more you learn, the more you can do. And it doesn't have to take loads and loads of time. Just reading an article here, there, if you're on the train to work or the bus or you're You can listen to a podcast or watch one of these videos before you're going to bed, or just read an article. Whatever you can do, flip through these groups and just see the questions that are coming up and the advice that's being given makes such a difference. Having somebody who you can bounce off. I've seen my daughter's doing this, I don't know what to do about it. Stimming's the perfect example. Somebody might be saying, oh, she's flapping all the time, I don't get it, she's spinning in circles, she's knocking her head. Knowing what stimming is and saying, I've actually read about this, it's stimming, it's actually a really healthy thing, it's actually a way that she's regulating her emotions, it's really good. As long as she's not hurting herself, you should let that happen. Just that little piece of advice to somebody who's new and hasn't experienced the world of autistic parenting is a huge thing. So being able to bounce back with that knowledge and provide some rationality to what might be a very emotional response that somebody's experiencing at the time can make a huge effect on their whole life. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. There's different ways that you can be a massive support. I want to thank my friends and family who have stuck by us. We've been very fortunate to have some very supportive people behind us, and it has made a world of difference. Be the support you wish you had in a situation like that. Think of a time you've struggled in your life and what was it that really made the difference. And be that for these people, be that person to these parents, because they might not want to talk about it. They might be embarrassed to talk about it, feel ashamed that they're not coping. But having somebody that cuts through that and says, hey, it's okay to be not okay. I'm here for you and we'll get through this together. You'd be amazed the difference it can make. You'd be amazed the impact you're going to have in that person's world. And if we're not looking for ways to make other people's lives better, then we're missing the point of being alive, in my opinion. So be that person, because you're amazing, and these parents are amazing, these kids are amazing, and we can make their world even more amazing just by being that support. Please do like, subscribe. I'd love to hear any tips that you've got. If there's a situation you've been in where you've wished you had some support and what that would have been, would be fantastic to hear and to be able to share. Please do also like this. The more people that like and subscribe, the more people get to see this. It's one of those weird algorithmic things on YouTube that the more subscribes and likes you're getting, the more views, then the more it pushes it out there. So it makes a big difference just to getting this message out there. Be a support to each other. Have a really positive impact on other people's lives. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.